We have seen the last 4 years since Benghazi, the survivors who were on the ground come out on this broadcast and others. True heroes. Not just because they went and fought 20 to 1, 30 to 1, 40 to 1, depending on the numbers in Benghazi, but because they didn't follow illegal, unconstitutional, treacherous, treasonous orders that violated their sworn oath to defend the Republic from enemies foreign and domestic, and to not follow orders to stand down for 13 hours, 8.5 hours of a firefight while the ambassador and his people were killed. And they've gone public. It was Colonel Schaefer, like a week after it happened, came on and broke down a lot of what happened. They really chewed him out, but he still didn't get in trouble. They tried to put him in prison for exposing Stratus Ivy and Abel Danger. But he made it through that. Tosh Plummer, they tried to put him in jail before. He was the guy back during Iran-Contra, famous whistleblower. Still kept his contract job with the CIA because there's a dark side and a light side. And people get burned when they tend to work with the system. They just end up killing and setting the worst up because they know where the bodies are buried. These criminals in the system are scared of people like Colonel Schaefer or a Tosh Plumley or the different Army and Navy SEALs folks like Tonto that we had on last week. And so the good news here is the truth is coming out. And just what Tosh Plumley told us 4 years ago on air, he said, I remember he was saying this, and I wasn't getting it. And I think I know a lot. He's like, it goes down to El Chapo. I've been down there at his ranch. This is where El Chapo was even caught again. And it's guns out of there being shipped over there, and it's wrong, and it's dangerous, and it ties into Fast and Furious. He's all on record. And now, a couple years later, it's in the news. 50 calibers, Fast and Furious, down to El Chapo, the guns going out to the Middle East, guns from Fast and Furious shown in the Middle East. It's all happening. Because if they can't get our own military to ship the guns to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they do it through Mexico. And you hear about El Chapo doing business deals in the Middle East now and threatening ISIS to cut their heads off because, they're cutting into his supply lines. They'll take guns from him, just not the drugs, or guns from other Mexican cartels who it turns out are on the CIA payroll. That's why it's wrong to put El Chapo in jail. That guy's been working for the CIA forever. That's admitted. His number 2 got caught 4 years ago. Chicago Tribune, El Paso Times, in court said, I'm CIA. We need to go into closed session. I'll give you my national security codes. They had to drop the case and let him go. That's why El Chapo says, extradite me to the U.S. Now, Tosh knows all the inside baseball, super classified stuff, knows El Chapo, you name it. It's all tied together. He's with us to the end of the hour. He'll be with us a little bit more in the next hour. Then we have retired Marine Corps Colonel Matt Smith-Meck, who just retired a few years ago and has been physically attacked, death-threatened, you name it, because he learned about it because the base they were on was involved in Fast and Furious. This is a guy that runs bases. This is a guy that was the head of Camp X-Ray, the head jurist there. I mean, he's a high-powered colonel, not just some guy in supply. He's getting into this with Kent Terry, brother of Brian Terry, who's popping back in during his lunch hour. Because it isn't just about Brian Terry, God rest his soul, who had stuff hidden in his boot about how it was a cover-up. It ties into everything in Hillary Clinton and what's going on, and her minion, the head of the Democratic Party, coming out and saying the FBI had looked into this criminal. They say they're looking into it criminally. They say it's a security check. No, it's not. So there's a battle going on right now, folks. And I'm telling you, Hillary gets into office. She's going after all her enemies, folks. She can only fail forward. She's in so much trouble. She will be a loose cannon and will really try to take this nation down. She's crazy. She's mentally ill. That's in the news. Throws fits, attacks people, chews on the carpet. I mean, she's that bad. So Robert Tosh Plumley, Facebook is facebook.com/robert.plumley.5. Just type in Tosh Plumley in the top links. Go to him. You talk about a hero, a patriot. He doesn't want to say this. This guy delivered arms to Fidel Castro in the late 50s when he worked for the CIA. Living legend. Living legend. I want to get him on sometime just about history and stuff that's been partially declassified. But he's got to be careful because they have killed so many people for knowing 1/10 of what this guy knows. Now, obviously, he's got things in place where everything gets released if they go after him. But he's said on the show many times, I'm not speaking for him, he's here to protect himself. In fact, let me just say briefly, I was on Coast to Coast AM, really tired, 2, 3 in the morning last week. Talking about Vivian Kubrick, daughter of Stanley Kubrick, who was his protege, great lady. I spent 3 days with her in Dallas up there at a JFK event. She just showed up. It was her. I looked it up. She didn't give an interview in like a decade. Told me all this incredible stuff about her dad and the system, but didn't tell me everything she told me I've said. And then we lost contact with her. She went to Florida, and I just did the metaphor of Men in Black. But she just said, oh, I can't talk to you anymore. I've got people I'm dealing with, and she was just off the radar. So there's nothing else I know about that. I kind of act like there was more. I reheard the broadcast. I don't know anything else. It was like when the D.C. madam was trying to tell me stuff off air in front of Josh and John Harmon and others. I said, listen, don't tell me this. So we came back on air, and I said, anything you know, say it now, or they'll kill you. She was dead a month later. So this is serious business, folks. This isn't entertainment. It's not your normal radio or TV. This is life-changing stuff and life-threatening to a lot of folks. Now, Tosh, if anything I said was inaccurate or needs to be clarified, break in. You're the expert. But you are a hero. You don't like to have that said about you. But, you know, you're right up there with the guys in 13 hours and what they did, you know, not following orders and doing the right thing. You put yourself on the line so many times. So thank you so much for your courage and what you've done. Correct me if I'm wrong on what I said, and then just put it in a nutshell, what we're facing, the new developments.
Well, okay, Alex, thank you very much for having me back on your program. I appreciate that. You're right. The more, I wouldn't call it publicity, we can get out there, but the more truth and facts and vetted information that we can get out public before the fact, so that we're aware as we go into this next election of what we're really up against. We're up against an international crime syndicate that has basically infiltrated our government at the highest levels. The gun running operation that you mentioned earlier has been an ongoing investigation for better than 7 years. When the Fast and Furious program broke, we had some very good investigative reporters. We had some very good military people. We had some very good Mexican Marinos, and we had a good task force that was gathering information. We had a good intelligence. It was not an intelligence failure in that situation. It was a political failure that let all of us guys down. I worked with the task force in Mexico in 2010, worked with the Marinos, and found out a lot about international arms shipments through the direct commercial sales program, which I've covered on your program, which you covered just a few seconds ago. And we didn't know the extent, or I didn't know the extent of where this information was going to go to. We didn't know everything that we know now about how vast this international gun running operation was ongoing. We didn't know that the high impact weapons were being approved by the State Department to be filtered through Mexico covertly and ended up in the Middle East and Libyan bunkers, and then saw in Jordan and Turkey, and was actually filtered by radical groups got into radical groups' hands. Missing Stinger missiles, 400 of them. We found out later that Ambassador Stevens was attempting to buy back those missiles at $50,000 apiece. The State Department turned him down. 2 weeks later, he and the other CIA people that was at the CIA annex, contractors, were, in my case, massacred. Not in my case, but in my view, were massacred. They were set up. Don't want to ramble.
You're not rambling. Please take your time.
We took this information when along the border down here, when Fast and Furious was going. We found out about arms shipments coming across Columbus, New Mexico. It was not straw purchasers like the federal government tried to tell everybody, the general public. It was a major, major international gun running that was going through ports of Columbus, New Mexico, Antelope Wells, Piedras Negras, and by the Falcon Lakes area, and Lajitas was the crossover points. The Mexican Army at that point in time had arrangements made that some of those weapons would be pilfered off and given to various drug cartels and gangs. Joaquin Guzman was one of them. Carl Quintero was another. And there was a shipment would go through that area. Those weapons would be pilfered off, a percentage of them, and then other high-impact weapons ended up in the Middle East in Libyan bunkers. Some years later, after some of that had happened, and Gaddafi was killed, CBS photographed some of the Stinger missiles in the back of Toyota trucks before ISA was really a strong fighting force. I put out at that time 11 Benghazi questions. And question number 6 was, will someday our American troops, be facing those American weapons on some foreign battlefield? And that is exactly where they are today. Our troops are over in Afghanistan and all in the Middle East, and they're facing fire from our weapons that were shipped through Mexico to the Middle East as far back as 2009 that I've recorded, and I've had reports that it was actually earlier than that, as far back as 2005. We attempted everything. I say we, I'm going to use the plural because there's more people than just me involved in this. We attempted to get all this information through proper channels and was flat stopped by the U.S. State Department. And I can't say it any stronger than that. Flat stopped by the U.S. State Department. We asked the Congress and the Senate to investigate this. They refused. They took information that they had received from various federal agencies that discredited a lot of military people, a lot of Border Patrol people, and a lot of people that were working very hard to bring this intelligence forward so that it could be assimilated, deciphered, and investigated. Some of us got a little bit upset about that. I went on a raid to put tracking devices on trucks here down in border town in Columbus, New Mexico. I was stopped from going across the border. This is all recorded in SalemNews.com and Narco News by Bill Conroy, a good friend of mine. And I was warned that if I continued to go across the border without going through a proper checkpoint, that I would be arrested. I was later contacted by the Trey Gowdy's office, allegedly. Got a phone call. They were going to do 2 or 3 things to me. They were going to issue a subpoena to me if I would not come back and talk to them. I told them I'd come back and talk to them as soon as that lady would come back and talk to them and raise her right hand, and I'd stand side by side with her and I'd raise my right hand and I'd tell them what they wanted to know. I classified myself as an investigative journalist and reporter, and I told them I would not divulge my military sources that were engaged with NATO forces in the Middle in Europe. So, I don't want to ramble here, but they're giving you a little bit of background on that. One of the meetings that we had in 2010, 6 months, or 2011 rather, 6 months after Brian Terry was ambushed and killed in Peck Canyon in Arizona, we sat down with a credentialed person that was with the Pentagon, and we detailed through a series of meetings with all Border Patrol sectors of this area down in here in South New Mexico, as far as Fabens and El Paso and Columbus, New Mexico, all the way down to Falcon Lakes and Piedras Negras and Eagle Pass. So we had a meeting. This was set up on the weekend of July of 2011, I believe it was. Yes, it was 6 months after Brian Terry. Brian Terry was killed December, I think it was the 10th of 2010, or no, a few days before Christmas. We detailed exactly what our investigation had. We tried every way in the world to get the congressional committees that were formed at that time to look into what information that we, 7 of us, had found from the task force out of Fort Bliss, Texas. They refused and went hell-bent on trying to discredit me, Brian Terry, and any of the others that had got this information. Brian Terry, I didn't know who the Border Patrol, okay, let me back up. I was told at the time that I talked to the Border Patrol here in Santa Teresa, Texas, or right here in New Mexico, I was told that there was, well, I was asked, did I know who the Border Patrol agent was that was investigating what we were talking about? And I'd always check in down there at Santa Teresa before I went along the border because I didn't want to shake up the Border Patrol down there with a civilian roaming around sitting on the fence taking pictures. Especially the ranch that later got raided, who allegedly, I don't know this for a fact, but allegedly a large quantity of guns and ammunition was taken from that ranch. The Mexican Marinos at the fence that day, which I took photographs of us shaking hands with the Mexican Marinos across the iron fence there in east of Columbus, New Mexico. They said, I asked them, I said, what did you find? They said, well, we're not at liberty to discuss that. He says, but we had a good day. They had a very bad day. And that was the extent of it. And the helicopters, the Marinos got in the helicopters and left the scene. 6 Border Patrol trucks at that point left the scene. We later had a meeting and that, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, on the weekend of the 4th of July, called a special meeting when 6 area representatives, intelligence sectors, met with us and also a credentialed Pentagon source, not official from the Pentagon, let me clarify that, but a credentialed source. And we sat down and went through detail, names, dates, times, pictures, and everything with the Border Patrol from the sectors.
Stay right there because it sounds like we've got to go to break, Tosh. You're saying they were trying to find out who the Border Patrol agent was, some groups, and then later that Border Patrol agent got killed. Oh, it's what the family's saying. It was a hit to take him out because he was investigating all this. Stay with us. Mr. Plumlee's going to ride shotgun with us a little bit in the next hour, and we have the brother of Brian Terry coming on. We also have Colonel Matt Smithmack, and all these people are just wonderful folks. They're going above and beyond their call to expose the takeover. And some people say, oh, corruption is just corruption. To the point where they publicly fund al-Qaeda and ISIS to wipe out hundreds of thousands of Christians and overthrow governments. And our military finally said the last few years, we're not doing that. Started actually aiding the Russians behind the scenes to kill them. And I told you about that years ago with our guest, Colonel Schaefer, and many others. Now you notice, a few months ago, it was in New York Magazine with Pulitzer Prize winner Cy Hirsch, who came on the show. So understand that, folks. This is a total battle for this nation. And the very worst, these criminal networks that we're talking about are involved in the sex trade, not just of women, but children. They're involved in money laundering, weapons contracts. That's what Sibel Edmonds of the FBI came out and said. Remember? It's all been confirmed. They're using al-Qaeda and ISIS as a criminal network who will do anything. Because these radical Muslims believe everybody else is an animal. You can do whatever you want to somebody who is a heretic or an infidel is the word they use. And they are the scum of the earth. And our government is publicly aiding them. It's not our government, it's a criminal group. So please support the broadcast, InfoWarsStore.com. This is revolutionary what you're hearing. Mr. Plum, he's got the sources, he's done the investigation, got out as a contractor a few years ago, retired, and he's got the courage to go on air. So his sources, you hear him talking about him in these meetings. He's down there. This guy's going into Mexico putting trackers on trucks. The real deal. Everything he told us years ago came out exactly as he said. The best Benghazi source we've got. You are hearing stuff they don't want you to hear. So take advantage of storable food specials in today, 40% off at Willen today. We also have big specials on Anthroplex, the male and female booster, just really high quality herbs. That's 15% off, 24-hour flash sale. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or call toll free 888-253-3139. Now going back to Tosh, only 3 minutes till break, or 4 minutes till break, sir. Just recapping the amazing stuff you talked about in the last 15 minutes. Were you implying, because I mean that's what his brother says, he found the notes in his boot, that people higher ups that you were warning wanted to know, who's the Border Patrol guy telling you this? Who's your source? And you didn't tell them, and then you were building up to something. But are you just coming out and saying, sure, they got rid of him because he was investigating?
Well, right. At the time, Alex, we didn't know, or I didn't know who their source was. Until Santa Teresa, the Border Patrol, one of the agents that had been working with the ATF on Fast and Furious, came up to me and he said, Tosh, he says, do you know who the mole is in the Border Patrol? I said, what do you mean mole? And he says, well, we've got some bad people in the ATF and we got some bad people in the Border Patrol. Now, I'm not saying that that's the true case. I'm saying that's what.
Sure, sure. We want to know who the bad people are, Tosh. Tell us who the source is.
Now, he come on up and he said, do you know who the agent is that is investigating exactly what you're saying, what you're telling us? I said, I didn't know the Border Patrol was working on this. Now, I didn't find this out until about 2 or 3 years later. I didn't contact the Terry family because I didn't, number one, I didn't want to embarrass them. I didn't want to make allegations that had not been vetted.
But once you heard that they'd figured out on their own, you've now talked to them.
Right, I've talked to him. Right, I've talked to Kent, Bryant's brother.
Yeah, no, he's thanked you on air.
Right. Okay. Now, this thing also led into other things. I want to get this in because I know you got to go to break. My time's up. This also led into the Clinton Foundation receiving millions of dollars from the Saudis on.
Yeah, you said that 4 years ago when nobody else said it. So we're going to go to break, come back and give you the floor to talk about that. But, Tosh, it's so incredible. You deserve a Pulitzer Prize, brother, or Congressional Medal of Honor. I know you don't want it. You care about the dead guys in Benghazi. But, oh, man, Brian, Terry, you, everybody are true heroes going up against a global mafia that runs little kids, the Clinton Foundation. I mean, it is incredible. Back in 70 seconds with a true hero. So proud of Americans like this and Texans like this. I tell you, folks, there's so many great Texans. There are so many great people in this government and in this system that have been fighting to stop total takeover of evil. And one of them is Robert Tosh Plumley. See him on Facebook at facebook.com/Robert.Plumley.5. He'll be with us with the other guests. We can have one of the others is on Skype and phone. But, Robert, you were getting into the rest of the story, what you first said here 4 years ago, about the State Department and her foundation and how she could get around arms shipments to dictators. She's got $100 million from Gulf state dictators. I mean, she is literally on the payroll. You laid it all out, said that's what Fast and Furious was, tied it in. It all came out, all accurate. You are dead on. I just want listeners to know that. This is incredible. I mean, this is just amazing. We're hearing in the New York Times that Donald Trump asked good-looking women out on dates when he's not married. I mean, that's big national news. He's so evil. We have a government money laundering, everything else, drug running, arms running, Border Patrol being killed to cover it up. Please continue, sir.
Okay, well, Alex, this investigation that we went on, it sort of took a life of its own. It started out as a very small deal of mom and pop guns going across the border, led into high impact military weapons through the direct commercial sales going across the border, led into those weapons being pilfered by the Mexican army, given to the drug cartels, Joaquin Guzman, one of them. But also it led into the international gun running, which I emphasized for the last couple of years on my Facebook page. And we've had vetted information, and we tried to follow the money.
And by the way, you're probably the oldest living hand at international gun running. You are the name in that.
Well, that's why call that a blessing or a curse, either way. But that's why I know sort of how the program works. I told you on your program, when you have a successful program as far back as the 1950s on gun running to Fidel Castro, and that program worked covertly and was withheld from the American people, it's very easy to expand upon that program over many decades. I used to say, well, we take a program off the shelf, we dust it off a little bit, we tweak it, and then we put it back out in the field. In this case, international gun running. It's been very good. It worked through Iran-Contra. Nobody went to jail for that, even though it was a violation of the Bolin Amendment. Some of us guys that began to find out that, hey, wait, we're working for an illegal operation on a special deal to filter money and profits from gun running back and using the drugs to purchase the weapons back to a criminal enterprise, which is syndicated. And that syndication had infiltrated into the highest levels of our government.
And that's the CIA and other agencies rolling out hardcore drugs to the general public and setting up the criminal syndicates to operate as the front.
We've lost a lot of good men, a lot of good Marines. Colonel Sabot was one of them that found out about those operations, and many, many people. I give credit to those people, not me. I just happen to be alive. I'm an old man, and I've lived.
Now, you've got the courage and the will, though, to be the source to put it out. So
But
I'm tired of heroes like you, selling themselves short. I mean, look, I know you're doing it for the right reasons, so we just appreciate you, and I want folks to recognize that. You're one in a million.
Well, mainly, the reason I'm public is to protect myself, as you said earlier in the program. so hero and all that. I mean, we're all heroes. I mean, these guys that are over there right now fighting against our U.S. made weapons are the heroes. Brian Terry was the hero. He put his life on the line, and he tried everything he possibly could to get his supervisors and superiors, if you want to call them superiors, to look into what he had found.
He's a hero. Stay there, Tosh. God rest his soul. We'll be right back. Stay there. We've got his brother coming on. There are so many great people in this government and in this system that have been fighting to stop total takeover of evil. And one of them is Robert Tosh Plumley. See him on Facebook at facebook.com/Robert.Plumley.5. He'll be with us with the other guests. We can have one of the others is on Skype and phone. But Robert, you were getting into the rest of the story, what you first said here 4 years ago about the State Department and her foundation and how she could get around arms shipments to dictators. She's got $100 million from Gulf state dictators. I mean, she is literally on the payroll. You laid it all out, said that's what Fast and Furious was, tied it in. It all came out, all accurate. You are dead on. I just want listeners to know that. This is incredible. I mean, this is just amazing. We're here in the New York Times that Donald Trump asked good-looking women out on dates when he's not married. I mean, that's big national news. He's so evil. We have a government money laundering, everything else, drug running, arms running, Border Patrol being killed to cover it up. Please continue, sir.
Okay, well, Alex, this investigation that we went on, it sort of took a life of its own. It started out as a very small deal of mom and pop guns going across the border, led into high impact military weapons through the direct commercial sales going across the border, led into those weapons being pilfered by the Mexican army, given to the drug cartels, Joaquin Guzman, one of them. But also it led into the international gun running, which I emphasized for the last couple of years on my Facebook page. And we've had vetted information, and we tried to follow the money.
And by the way, you're probably the oldest living hand at international gun running. You are the name in that.
Well, that's why call that a blessing or a curse, either way. But that's why I know sort of how the program works. I told you on your program, when you have a successful program as far back as the 1950s on gun running to Fidel Castro, and that program worked covertly and was withheld from the American people, it's very easy to expand upon that program over many decades. I used to say, well, we take a program off the shelf, we dust it off a little bit, we tweak it, and then we put it back out in the field. In this case, international gun running. It's been very good. It worked through Iran-Contra. Nobody went to jail for that, even though it was a violation of the Bolton Amendment. Some of us guys that began to find out that, hey, wait, we're working for an illegal operation on a special deal to filter money and profits from gun running back and using the drugs to purchase the weapons back to a criminal enterprise, which is syndicated. And that syndication had infiltrated into the highest levels of our government.
And that's the CIA and other agencies rolling out hardcore drugs to the general public and setting up the criminal syndicates to operate as the front.
We've lost a lot of good men, a lot of good Marines. Colonel Sabot was one of them that found out about those operations, and many, many people. I give credit to those people, not me. I just happen to be alive. I'm an old man, and I've lived.
Now you've got the courage and the will, though, to be the source to put it out. So you.
But
I'm tired of heroes like you selling themselves short. I mean, look, I know you're doing it for the right reasons, so we just appreciate you, and I want folks to recognize that. You're one in a million.
Well, mainly, the reason I'm public is to protect myself, as you said earlier in the program. So, hero and all that. I mean, we're all heroes. I mean, these guys that are over there right now fighting against our U.S. made weapons are the heroes. Brian Terry was the hero. He put his life on the line, and he tried everything he possibly could to get his supervisors and superiors, if you want to call them superiors, to look into what he had found.
He's a hero. Stay there, Tosh. God rest his soul. We'll be right back. Stay there. We've got his brother coming on. We are about to go back to Robert Tosh Plumley, major CIA whistleblower. We also have recently retired Marine Corps Colonel Matt Smithmeck. And we have the brother, the surviving brother of Brian Terry, the hero Border Patrol agent that we now know was investigating Fast and Furious. He wasn't just killed by a Fast and Furious gun, reportedly. He was killed, the evidence points towards, because he was investigating the fact that the straw purchases was just a cover. There were major arms being shipped out of military bases, you name it, hand grenades, fully automatic weapons, you name it, down there. And most of it was ended up getting shipped into the Middle East to radical jihadis. And we now know what Colonel Shaford said a week after it happened here. What was very accurate from his sources, that the ambassador did not want to let al-Qaeda have the 400 Stinger missiles, thousands of other surface-to-air missiles, was trying to buy them back for $50,000 a piece. And they had the security pulled on them and went in to let them be taken out by the local jihadis that were, quote, running security in Benghazi. That was the capital of the Obama NATO-backed takeover of Libya. So this is all about turning loose the Saudi Arabian proxy army worldwide. And Robert Tosh Plumlee just broke that down in the last 30 minutes. He'll be riding shotgun with us to pop in anytime he wants to add more background to this. And we have, again, Colonel Smithmeck on with us as well. I don't have time to get back into his bio. I mean, he was very high level and one of the top guys at Guantanamo Bay, one of the top jurists there and commanders, and has just been involved in, you name it, of just all sorts of very important operations. So he has a lot of courage. He's been physically attacked, threatened, you name it, over what he's doing and, you know, following what he should do. So it's a very serious situation. Matt's been physically attacked, demonized, threatened. We have Brian Terry being killed. We have Plumlee being threatened by the Justice Department and others. I've been threatened a little bit over this, but it's just par for the course. This is very serious, and it's totally illegal. And in the middle of it's Hillary Clinton with the State Department shipping weapons overseas, then she gets money into her foundation. 4 years ago, when no one talked about it, Tosh Plumlee, and he went to Fox News and everybody, they wouldn't talk to him. He came here, Narco News and others, it's out there. And now Hillary's sitting on top of political landmine. It's a very serious time. So he's got to leave us in 15 minutes, or at the bottom of the hour. He's on his lunch hour. Kent Terry, I want to talk to him first, and we'll bring in the Colonel, and then we will finish up also with Tosh. But first off, since you were on a month or two ago, more weapons, you know, coming up, shipped to El Chapo, CIA, SERB, just so much more news. You know, Hillary in the middle of this, your brother trying to get the word out, the documents you found that he hid, that the FBI didn't find in his home. What key points would you like to make at this point about the HonorBrianTerry.com group and organization and what you're spearheading, Matt, Kent?
The Brian Terry, HonorBrianTerry.com is a foundation my sister started in honor of Brian. We give out scholarships to kids that want to go to school for criminal justice or any kind of law. And then we help with the families of fallen Border Patrol agents that get killed in the line of duty, or anybody that's in hard times in the Border Patrol. So we try to base everything on that, and then in honor of Brian.
You heard some of the facts I laid out. I mean, this stuff's really getting clear now that this was a criminal, organized crime, global operation. What can you add that's developed since the last time you were on? Where do you want to see all this go? What do you think of Hillary being right in the middle of this?
Well, you know, me and my brother-in-law figured that one out years ago that, you know, the State Department was behind us, especially Hillary, you know, being in her past. But I think Brian was on the Fast and Furious, but I don't think he knew the extent or the name of it. But like I said in that journal, there's some pages in there where he found crate fulls of AK-47s and was told to let go. So I think he was aware of it. I think he brought attention to his superiors, and they didn't like it. Or somebody in Washington, because the union made a point to my family after Brian died that Brian wrote 3 emails regarding a situation going on at the Border Patrol. But not only that, Mr. McKenna, I've heard from Border Patrol agents that my family is being lied to by the government, by the Border Patrol itself, about what really happened at night. And then, you know, just something recently, we found out that after we found out that Brian wrote these 3 emails, Dennis Burke, which was involved in Fast and Furious, attorney out of Arizona, his computers were wiped clean out of his house. The hard drives were missing out of the one. The one was completely taken out and clean. I mean, it doesn't even power up, Hewlett Packard, nothing. And then we couldn't find his cell phone for like 4 years, and all of a sudden FBI found it and his tactical jacket last September. How many trials they had since then with these RIP crew guys, and all of a sudden they find it at the end of the trial. of last September of 2015.
Isn't that convenient? How do
Okay.
they get so many FBI agents and ATF and people to be corrupt and just be involved in this type of stuff? I mean, this international crime syndicate, as Plumlee was talking about, is running kids, weapons, money, and it's taken over, and it's been shipping cocaine in since the 80s. I mean, it's just, this criminal group has got to be stopped. I mean, it's just growing like cancer.
You know, Congress and Senate got the perfect time to set laws in place to make examples out of these, and I'm surprised they're not. And they haven't even started the bill or anything. Any government official that's involved in a agent's death or corruption in the government should be held accountable, should be going to prison, and they're not. You know what they do? They get to retire with a full pension, sit on a beach, and, you know, put it all behind them. That's their punishment. Who wouldn't want that? I mean, it's sad that the way this country's going, and this administration is so corrupt. It's disgusting. The blood on their hands is just out of control.
Yeah, there have been a lot of problems in other administrations, but clearly the breadth and scope of tyranny is like triple. Even Jonathan Turley and other liberal constitutional lawyers that are prominent say it's 3 times worse under Obama than anything they've ever seen. And he said that a few years ago. It just gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, look at Hillary. You know, there's a hashtag out there, handcuffs for Hillary, and it's going viral. I want to thank folks for getting that out because it links back to articles that shows her real crimes at Infowars.com and our Hillary for Prison t-shirts. But we need to start a whole nother thing about Hillary Clinton above the law or Clinton's above the law. I mean, he shouldn't call her crooked Hillary Trump. He should call her, you know, is Hillary above the law? Above the law Hillary. That's my question for you, Kent. I mean, she's been caught taking money from dictators, circumventing the ban on these weapons to these dictators. She's openly committing all these crimes. And it's just like, wow. I mean, even the Hill newspaper and others have said, if the Justice Department and the FBI don't move on her, they're totally discredited. I mean, the Associated Press reports mainstream media has a 6% approval rating. Where do you think this is going?
Well, you know what? I don't know where it's going. It's going in a bad shape if she gets in office, I'll tell you that much. But the thing is, though, you got to step back and look at Holder's situation in Fast and Furious. Look how he was, you know, let off on that. You know, you don't hear nothing about that. And this is I see a repeat with Hillary Clinton. This is what I see. But, you know, it tells you, you go back a little ways, it tells you who's actually involved in this. Is the FBI involved in this with the Hillary thing? Are they? Because nothing seems to be happening. I mean, just like Eric Holder, you know, they find out all these people are involved in it after the fact, and then nothing still happened. And that's sad because these American people need to wake up with Hillary.
I know this. We owe Richard Nixon an apology. He should have gotten in trouble for having 100 names with the IRS. Didn't go after him. He should have gotten in trouble for breaking the psychiatrist office of his competition. But I mean, that is nothing compared to this. It's nothing. Nothing.
No, but you know the thing is, how come they can put Martha Stewart in prison for perjury, Congress and Senate, but they can't do this with these people?
They convicted Petraeus, and he has probation for like having a couple documents in his home.
Yep, I think it's a lot of politicians involved in both sides of the party in this, and they don't want to rat on each other. And I think that's what it comes down to.
That's it. We're reaching the point where it's too corrupt to fail, and so we just let them take over everything, and they're God. We're going to break in a moment. I hope you save 5 more minutes with us, sir. If you have to go, I understand. But let's bring in Colonel Matt Smithmeck. Sir, thank you. We're going to break in a moment, but what would you add to the new developments?
Mr. Jones, real quick, what I would say is that we have passed information on to House Oversight, names of confidential informants, weapon shipments that's about to go downrange here end of this month. And we've relayed that information. I know Kent has contacted them as well. And so far, I mean, we see no action. And again, the one domain that the government utilized to run weapons, for some reason, it seems that the congressional investigators are not inclined to want to pursue an opportunity that's kind of being laid at their feet to utilize. And, as we talked about last time, Mr. Elijah Ness from Fox News is involved. And to his credit, he is steadfastly, doing his due diligence in pursuing this.
Just amazing. We're about to go to break and come back and just briefly have Kent Terry have some final comments on that and then get to you, Colonel, and Tosh Plumlee, hopefully at about 40 after if you guys will stay a little bit longer. But You're there. You've got the sources of the Marine Corps base. You were there, one of the commanders. You know the weapons are being prepared. People are blowing the whistle, and they're going to just ship more into Mexico to go to ISIS right in front of everybody, and even Congress knows. I mean, this is sensational.
Yes, sir. You know, I mean, several former ATF folks, you know, said the caution not to trust certainly ATF leadership. So we made a point to make sure we told the Congressional Oversight Committee that is responsible for this, and they know it. So, you know, I encourage, you know, folks who want to support Brian Terry, support the truth. I mean, with you know, civility and so forth. But I would call House Oversight and ask them, why are they not doing what they promised the Terry family?
Well, sir, we're going to take this video today from the last hour and edit it down to like 10 minutes. And we're going to put that out and just say Congress knows guns are still being shipped. And we're going to get this out to everybody. So that's something our listeners can take action with. Kent Terry has to go in about 3 or 4 minutes back to work. He's on his lunch hour. So I'm going to skip this break. Let me finish up with him. I'm going to go back to you, Colonel, and then back to Tosh. You guys can have a roundtable discussion. You guys can have the floor because you're the experts. But just amazing, Kent, to hear this, to know this, to know everything Plumlee told us 4 years ago has all come out. And now we just have open total crime, aiding terrorists in front of us. And, I mean, what is that like for you to know that? I mean, what do you want to say to Congress?
You know, it's sickening because, you know what? You watch Hillary, she wants to ban guns in the United States, her and Obama. But here they're shipping them to other countries that are killing kids. They're killing families, mothers, and fathers, you know, just like they would be over here. I mean, how can that be right? But then you got people like Gabby Gifford, you know, that's, I'm sorry about what happened to her. Now she's jumping on the Hillary bandwagon about you know, too many guns in America. But you know what? Her and her husband shoot guns as a hobby. It don't make sense to me. It's like it's almost double standards. It's good for them, but not for the American people. And it's sad the way this country is going with this, because we're going to be in a situation one time with this administration or with Hillary, and if she gets president, that we're not going to be able to protect ourselves. And these people need to wake up and smell the coffee, because that's exactly what's going to happen. We're not going to be able to defend our own backyard because what they're doing.
We're being conquered. They're bringing in 5 million jihadis into Europe, most of them military-age men. This is an invasion. I've had a lot of high-ups tell me that. I've talked to a lot of people currently in, and it's so crazy. This is how they would take down America. The leftist with a bunch of jihadis, with a bunch of criminal drug cartels. They run the corruption. They run the organized crime. They think they're just going to blackmail us all and kill us and go after us and win. But everybody's going to be on their toes when all this goes down. We now know the battle space. They've got a serious problem. HonorBrianTerry.com. Kent, we appreciate your brother. He was a hero. We appreciate you. And we appreciate Tosh Plumlee and just everybody else and the whistleblowers that have gone through hell to do this, and the colonel who's been threatened, physically attacked, you name it. Thank you so much, Kent.
Andrew, can I say one more thing?
Yes, sir.
I talked to a lot of Border Patrol agents that work on the border in Texas and Arizona, and I'll never release their names about who I talk. But there's more than just criminal Mexicans coming across this border. We've got, like you said, radical jihadist people coming through here. We got all sorts of people that they're told to keep shut to the media about what's coming across that border. And they tell me constant. Even Cheryl Atkinson did a story a little bit on it about, you know, they're finding the Korans, they're finding, you know, all this stuff.
Thousands of other than Mexican a month, and half of those are from the Middle East.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? They're told to hush up about it. And it's sad, because it's right in our backyard.
Well, I'll add this. Then the TSA has 4-hour lines and wants to grope me and put me through naked body scanners. When they swipe my ID, they know full well I have no criminal record. It's a load of bull to train us to be slaves. God bless you, Kent. Anything else?
No, that's it. I appreciate it, Andrew.
All right, thank you. Again, that's a Kent Terry. We've got a lot of folks here on the line with us. We've got Colonel Matt Smithmack with us, and we also have Tosh Plumlee. Briefly, going back to Tosh, hearing this, I mean, this just makes my blood boil. And then, Colonel, pop in anytime.
Well, okay. In answer to your question, what's the cause of this? It's factual. We are dealing with an international crime syndicate that has infiltrated the highest offices of highest agencies and the highest offices of this country. They have a plan. We do not have a plan. It is not an intelligence failure. Our intelligence community is doing their job. Our politicians and our elected officials are not doing their job. As a result of them not doing their job, good agents, good military people, good women and children are losing their lives on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. This is a dog and pony show that's being given to the American people during this election phase. They're not asking the questions. What we've covered here today and what Kent has said, they're not covering that. They're not asking the questions. They have desensitized the American people to the point to where we expect what's going on. So we've been infiltrated, our Supreme Court, our highest offices of the land, the presidency. This Obama is a joke. He's not only a lame duck, but I'm not going to go off into that. I mean, whatever.
Could you call this a crime coup? This is a corruption coup.
I've said this. I've said it on my Facebook. This is the coup. America is being under a coup d'etat. It's been going on for gradually and escalating for the last 5 decades. That's it. We're in a coup. We're losing our country. And those that do not come out publicly before the fact are going to get killed. Simple as that. Terry did everything he could. Colonel Sabot did everything he could. Barry Seal did everything he could. But one thing that they did not do,
go public.
They did not go public. Public would bring it down. Hastings was going public, went down. You can name them. Alex, you've had them on your show.
Hastings said days before on TV, they've taken over. It's criminals. I'm about to break it. The media must resist this takeover. This is a rebellion. He called family. I've talked to him, said the feds are after me. And his car just blows up, shoots the engine, hundreds of yards down the street. And then they just go, oh, it's normal for our cars to blow up like that. It's amazing. Let's go to the Colonel. Colonel, there's been developments since you were on a month and a half ago. You've got the floor. What's most important in the next 5 minutes for people to know?
Mr. Jones, I'd say the most important thing is, again, we have that source that is willing to work with House oversight. This person is talking to Mr. Lajeunesse, and also to the Hannity show's credit, I know Kent has been talking to one of the producers on the Hannity show.
Good, he's come on.
And they're trying to help as well too, to help him with the email situation, trying to find out those 3 emails that Brian sent, and they kind of just disappeared. Matter of fact, I remember Kent telling me, I believe it was actually Representative Chaffetz, I believe himself, who talked to Kent, Terry, and said, hey, we never got these emails or knew about these emails that Brian had and was sent to us. So he actually, from what Kent told me about 2.5 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, talked to Kent himself, explaining this. But
so the good news is, just like we 6 months ago were talking about Facebook censoring conservatives, that's now an investigation. You guys are starting to get some traction here.
Yes, sir. It seems it's at a glacier pace, perhaps, and perhaps there's other things going on behind the scenes that I'm not privy to. But we have passed information, as I had talked and emailed Mr. Representative Trey Gowdy, and he said, please, always forward me everything you've got. So everything I've got, I'm passing on to him. We know weapons are going here again. Not just rifles and hand grenade, rifles and handguns, but we're talking laser guided munitions. We're talking RPGs, perhaps shoulder fired missiles, and these are going via air out of a location in Arizona into Mexico, and we've passed that information on to House oversight and let them know this particular source wants to help. He's willing to help.
This is so big that I mean, I just feel overwhelmed. We're going to take this, do articles on it. It's up to the listeners to get it out. I want to have you guys, because I got Roger Stone coming on. I forgot that was happening. I apologize. I want to ask you both back up and say a week or so. This is moving so quick, for just the 2 of you for a full hour to really brainstorm with the listeners on how we can, do this. But just about a minute and a half for Tosh, a minute or so for you. Gentlemen, thank you so much for what you're doing. I know I don't normally say that over and over again, but you guys are really risking your lives, and I appreciate that for my family. So I'm doing it to a certain extent, but nothing like you guys. This is so dangerous. I can just feel it from a distance. But Tosh, any other final points, sir?
Yeah, I want to make a point here. What got Matt and I together is the same information that he got from a separate source about the current gun running that's getting ready to happen the end of this month by aircraft coming out of Arizona, dovetailed in with the information that we had received from very sensitive sources of a military intelligence unit. And that was the reason that Matt and I got together, and also Kent Terry. We have an operation that is ongoing in the future. You heard it here before the fact.
So they're Fast and Furious 2 ISIS continuing. Whistleblowers are saying it. They're going to do it nakedly. Colonel?
Yes, sir. And I'd say, as a former Marine, to me, one of the most important things is to get closure for the Terry family. I mean, that Brian risked his life, put his neck out, tried to do the right thing, alerted his family that something was not right, tried to tell his superiors, and now, the family still seems to be not getting the support.
That's right. Let's not let his death be in vain, because he's even superhero level if he helps end up bringing these criminals down.
Yes, sir.
Then he didn't die in vain. An incredible point, Colonel. Will both of you come back on for another hour next week to war game this?
Yes, sir. You bet.
Well, let's get you guys then on hold during the break, find out when you can do it together. Let's do it together next week to beat the drum, get articles out more. I know our listeners are upset about this. They want to see Hillary brought to justice. This is a chink in the dragon's armor. Gentlemen, Colonel and Tosh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
I tell you, folks, this is just over-the-top historic stuff you're hearing, and it's so dangerous. I hope people realize this isn't pearls before swine. This is political death to our enemies. We got to get it out to everybody. I'm not gonna sit here and take it anymore. My fellow Info Warriors, I am very excited to be able to announce to you the introduction at InfoWarsLife.com of a new way to save time and money when you stock up on InfoWars Life formulations like Survival Shield X2 and Super Male Vitality. Just go to InfoWarsLife.com today, select your favorite product, click on Auto Ship before adding to cart, and choose how often you want us to send you another order. Every time you choose Auto Ship at InfoWarsLife.com, you get 10% off, and you won't have to worry about running out and having to reorder next time. And of course, you can cancel with one click anytime. As you know, I'm all about the idea of a 360 win, and the new auto ship feature at InfoWarsLife.com is a sure win for everybody. A win for liberty, a win for health, and a win when it comes to big savings. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today and save 10% on your next InfoWars Life order by selecting auto ship at checkout. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.